Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Get Stuff Done podcast. With me is OMES Director Stephen Harp.
Hey. And
we also have the Director of ODOT, Tim Gatz.
Hello.
You were also on the cabinet with Steve. You guys have a lot of shared connections.
Well, I'm not actually, I'm like the sub-member to the cabinet. I'm a deputy secretary. Secretary Gatz is the full bird secretary.
Full bird. Can you get that on a business card?
That's right. It's like colonel,
Exactly.
lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Transportation Cabinet is three primary agencies, and that's Department of Transportation, which I serve as director of, Turnpike Authority, which I also serve as director of, and then the Aeronautics Commission. So
That is a lot. So every day you really dealing with a bunch of different transportation issues. I mean, what does that average day look like?
well, some of them can be long, but from the context of working with the agencies, the thing I always emphasize is transportation, I feel like, is a little bit unique. We've got many long-tenured employees, and they're the best in state government as far as I'm concerned. And everything that we do is trying to support what our boots on the ground out there are trying to accomplish every day. So again, my days are long, but we've got folks out in the field that are really doing the things that need to be done to keep the traveling public safe. And they do it very well, and they take it very seriously. So,
I do want to take a moment, at least for those people at OMES that are listening. Secretary Gatz has been a great partner. So Tim's always recognized OMES. He's been one to call out the things that have been getting done, GSD, so to speak. People can't be in the room all the time, our employees, but he's done it on multiple occasions and in large and small audience. Well, I appreciate that. And make sure that our employees hear it. Tim, for everyone else that's listening, kind of give them a little bit of 101 on Department of Transportation or your cabinet.
The cabinet, and I think it's important to understand that, the Department of Transportation, we support a lot of different modes of transportation. Our primary is the highways. And when I say highways, I mean the U.S. numbered routes, the state highway numbered routes, and the interstate system. No county roads, no city streets. We work with local entities of government regularly as transportation partners, but we don't have jurisdictional responsibility for their systems. And I think it's also important when you look at the tax-supported highway system, not the toll system, but the tax-supported highways, to understand the challenge that Oklahoma has. We have the 17th largest highway system in the country. We have the 15th most bridges in the country, half again as many as Kansas, and almost twice as many as Colorado.
Do we have that much water?
We have
Holy
a
cow.
Well,
we have a
you
lot
think
of
about the I-35 exchange
Yeah.
right there, too. It's not even really over water. It's just a huge bridge system.
a lot of miles.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, Oklahoma is the 28th most populous state. So we've got a very large transportation infrastructure that's supported by a relatively small tax base. So that proves to be challenging sometimes.
Sure.
And then in addition to that, our system, Oklahoma makes things. We manufacture. We're moving goods in, raw materials in, finished products out. We are a big agricultural state. Mm-hmm. We're a big energy producing state. So our system is intensely utilized. So we're hard on it.
Yeah.
And, that in conjunction makes it pretty difficult for us to get our arms around everything we need to sometimes.
Plus, we're in the central part of the U.S., so everything comes
It's a crossroads of America.
through Oklahoma City, Tulsa.
Absolutely that. We are the crossroads of America. We've got, like I said, a lot of movement to and through our state. So a lot to keep track of. Talk a little bit about the Turnpike Authority and some of the things that they do. With the Turnpike Authority, and a little bit unique, when the Turner Turnpike was constructed to connect our two major metropolitan areas, because the best highway we had at the time was Route 66, which served us very well, but 20-foot wide, two big metropolitan areas on either end of it. So in the 50s, Oklahoma stepped up and said, let's build something that's modern, high-speed to connect our two major metropolitan areas. 1953, we cut a ribbon on the Turner 3 years before President Eisenhower signed the interstate bill that brought us the interstate system. So very unique. And the Turnpike Authority has been really good at filling critical transportation needs across the state of Oklahoma when the Department of Transportation couldn't meet those needs. And that's been their role. They've stuck to that and done a really exceptional job of it. We've got one of the largest turnpike networks in the country, about 640 miles. The best example of how good a job they've done that I can give you is their infrastructure is in very good condition. No structurally deficient bridges. All the pavements are in pretty good condition. Our tolls are 60% below the national average.
Wow.
At about 8 cents a mile.
Well, you visit New York one time and you go across like George Washington,
Yeah,
you
it's
figure
crazy.
that out pretty quick.
Yeah, so that's an indication of the job they're doing. Maintained a good infrastructure, made wise investments, and they're doing a good job of meeting some of those needs. I tell folks all the time, if you live in the Panhandle of the state of Oklahoma and you don't believe you're impacted by a turnpike because there's none in the region, you're absolutely impacted by a turnpike because they're filling a need in the state of Oklahoma that otherwise would either go unmet or the Department of Transportation would have to figure out how to meet that need so we can stretch our resources further.
I thought I was just doing it for the speed limits. I was like, I want to drive fast. But I'm doing my part.
Safe and convenient access.
Yes.
Something the Turnpike prides itself in, and safety in transportation in general is one of our number one priorities. So,
Talk a little bit about in cabinet meetings. We've had some conversations when you're trying to dream big, or this topic always seems to come up about high-speed rail. What's your opinion or thought process on like high-speed rail? Where would you put it if you could? Where Tulsa, Oklahoma City always comes up, and when we've had these conversations about how difficult that might be. Talk a little bit about that, so just the general public knows maybe what we fight in those areas.
From a true high-speed rail, because again, the Heartland Flyer, because it can travel in excess of 70 miles an hour, is considered to be a higher speed rail line. But a true bullet train, if you would,
Right.
where you get into that category, has been long talked about. And they're actually, if you look at the high-speed rail network in the nation, there is a leg that comes down from the northeast that would go through Tulsa and on to Oklahoma City. The challenge with high-speed rail is it wants to be straight and it wants to be flat. And the terrain between Oklahoma City and Tulsa is neither.
Right.
And if you've traveled the Turner Turnpike, it's lots of terrain changes, lots of vertical alignment problems, and it's not straight. You might think it is, but if you ever look at the map, put your ruler down, not straight. So the expense of high-speed rail, and I think you can see that being proven in developments like they're doing in California, that's way over budget, way behind schedule, because they didn't anticipate the types of costs that are being realized. And that's the real challenge there, is how do you engage the resources first to construct a facility like that, which is in the billions of dollars just in the state of Oklahoma is what it would cost. And then how do you maintain that operation for the long term? And it truly has to be a national initiative, and it truly has to have the commitment for the near term and the long term to really build something like that. And it's massive.
Well, talking about your challenges makes me think you have big dreams for the future. What are some of your hopes right now?
When you get into hopes for transportation, we're going through a modernization initiative right now where we're looking at the transportation cabinet to see if we can come up with some ideas about how to make us more efficient, how to get us into a mode where we're thinking about the future regularly. And I think that's going to be really successful. We're looking at opportunities to leverage resources across the cabinet, looking at opportunities where we might be able to blend our table of organization a little bit across the cabinet. And that's pretty exciting to me because, again, that's about Oklahoma's future. How are we going to deliver the services that our citizens expect and give them the best possible transportation system we can?
Sure.
And that's a big deal for us right now. I think when you look long term at infrastructure investments, we are not done. We have gone from 49th in the country in structurally deficient bridges to in the top 10.
Wow.
We're now 9th.
When did that happen?
That's happened over a 15-year period.
Yeah, I remember that initial report, but we've really improved.
Oh, yeah.
Diligence, focus, and support from the legislature, support from the governor to make that happen. Those are critical. But that's what's possible. And Oklahoma's infrastructure is not everything it needs to be today. It can be safer. We've got over 5,000 miles of rural 2-lane highway that doesn't have safety shoulders on it right now. And what you find is on that system, we have some of our most severe injury accidents and fatality accidents at a higher rate than any other part of our system. So my hope is we'll be able to address some of those deficiencies.
You just said something that made me think. Sorry. So talk to people about how your cabinet, any of the agencies, use data. How do they like? You just gave a stat on where we have some of the most deadly accidents. How do you guys get that data? I mean, how do you guys use data to make decisions? Kind of talk through that a little bit.
Our 8-year construction work plan at the Department of Transportation is what I would tell you is data driven. So again, we collect tons of information, accident histories, vertical alignments, geometrics, bridge condition, pavement condition, and all of that data goes into the analytical side and the engineering side of the department, and that drives our decision making. We want to make the right type of investment in the right type of highway at the right time, one, to extend its life cycle. Unfortunately, we've got some facilities that are beyond saving. When we make a full depth reconstruction investment, we've got to make sure we get that right too. And that's driven by that data that we collect. Everything from seatbelt usage, which I want to see us be better. We're going to be a lower tier state when it comes to seatbelt usage. All the way to actually getting out there, and we're using LiDAR now, which is data collection, which, at 70 miles an hour, they've got a laser unit that mounts onto a vehicle, and they can collect everything from pavement condition data to sign inventories, guardrail conditions, and things like that. So we collect the entire network. We take that information and factor that in to help us make good decisions.
I think you all are amazing at your job. I feel like there's always something under construction because you are looking for those improvements. But someone told me something interesting about that. They said because Oklahoma City is so expansive, that's why there's so many parts that are under construction, is we have that highway system like you were talking about. So these big projects, that people are noticing right now by the Capitol, are those some that will wrap up soon, and what's kind of next?
Sure. We're playing catch up in a lot of instances. And we've got some major projects like Interstate 44 and 235. If you have to travel through that interchange, or you have traveled through it in the last couple of years, I apologize. The best advice I can give you is to stay away from it if you can. But that's a $300+ million investment in infrastructure because that facility was no longer supporting the traffic volumes and the safety that we need out on our systems. When you get into the metropolitan areas, that's what we're trying to stay ahead of. Travel time reliability is major, and it's a performance metric that we pay very close attention to. How are you moving people?
You're talking about the signs that are over now saying it'll take you 8 minutes to get to 240 from here.
Yeah, but the data that we collect is much more detailed than that.
That's just what the public sees.
That's what the public sees. Yeah. What we're looking at is if you're a delivery truck and you're bringing goods into a metropolitan area, how reliable is your travel from point A to point B? And if we start to see a breakdown in that travel time reliability, that means that our system's not operating efficiently, which adds cost to the users of that system. And that's something we want to try to do our best at being as efficient as we can.
Do you measure emergency services against that as well?
Emergency services, we interact very closely with the Highway Patrol,
right,
and also local governmental emergency responders. We don't necessarily collect that data specifically, but that feedback that we get from them regularly is something that we factor into some of our decision making. Again, but we're playing catch up, and especially when you get into the major metropolitan areas, the expense of those big projects is such that it's hard for us to get our arms around it.
Are there partnerships between your cabinet, municipalities, counties? I mean, where, forgive me, I kind of compare this to broadband, the state's kind of working through right now. And when you look at the broadband problem, you're looking at the underserved areas and how do we get more broadband. Do you look at how we get better roads and safer roads? Do you guys, how does that work? Like, do you guys communicate? Are there meetings? Kind of give us some sense of how that partnership is, how you guys talk.
Yeah, we have 8 districts in the Department of Transportation geographically spread out around the state. Those districts have a field district engineer, who is a primary contact for those communities. They interact with the communities in their area regularly, and really that's where it starts. And then the legislature, we work very closely with the legislators because the feedback that we get from them is a critical part of our engagement with the public, because usually they hear from one of their constituents about an issue we may have out on the system that we may not know anything about. So I always encourage them, man, that line of communication with your district engineer, they've all got my cell phone number and they use it regularly, which is a good thing. We need that feedback.
Call me.
Yeah, we need that feedback. And again, that enhances our response time. And we get out and try to address the issues that might be occurring.
And really, you might only know them from the public perspective if maybe a snowstorm's coming through and you all have to treat the roads, and that's their exposure. But at that point, they know they can trust you to handle the bigger projects.
Yeah, and the taxpayers that I work for don't really care whether it's a city street, a county road, or a highway. They want them all to be good. So that really puts that focus on the partnership that we have with county commissioners, with government leaders in the local government arena, and other state agencies for that matter. And we try to work really well.
Got to play nice with everybody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, what about interoperability with other states? So, for example, if you drive to Texas or Missouri and we're using their turnpikes, how interoperable are we with them or them with us? We have partnerships with those states as well?
We are interoperable with your Pikepass.
Right.
With Kansas and all of Texas. So we're in what's called a hub that is a processing hub that's in Dallas. And as part of that hub, that enables us to be interoperable out there on the network. Something exciting in that arena right now that we're going to see rapidly materialize is cashless tolling. And when you come to a toll plaza,
I don't mean to laugh. I've just thought so many times when I'm out on the road, do I have enough quarters to get through here?
Yeah, it's time. Obviously, we're going to encourage you first to get a Pikepass.
Yes.
Because, it'll work on all of our network, Kansas, Texas. If you're entering a toll plaza, and safety is something that all of transportation, again, I can't reinforce it enough, is our number one priority. When you're entering a toll plaza, you have 3 opportunities to have an accident. One when you exit the main line, one when you stop to pay the toll, and one when you re-enter the main line. And we have some of the worst accidents of anywhere on our facilities at those toll plazas.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've seen some ambulances lately in the news have issues with those because they are traveling at a high rate of speed too.
We've been talking about all electronic tolling for a number of years, cashless tolling. And what really put an exclamation point on this for me was when I stood in the middle of the Newcastle toll plaza on the H.E. Bailey Turnpike, where we had an ambulance that hit that toll plaza. We had a young lady that was in the toll booth at the time, knocked the toll booth off the foundation.
How scary.
Fortunately, we didn't have any fatalities due to that accident.
Wow.
But if that toll plaza wasn't there wouldn't have been an opportunity to have that accident.
Sure.
So we kind of put this in high gear. There's a lot of moving parts to it. But coming soon, and this summer, we're going to take our first facility to a cashless tolling format. It'll be here on the John Kilpatrick.
Wow.
And that's a huge transformational
Very
step
cool.
forward in technology that is really long overdue. We should have done this a long time ago.
Texas does that though, right?
Yeah, they
And
do.
they'll send you a bill after the fact, and you kind of pay it in the mail.
Yep, it'll be a license plate read and invoicing system. And again, your best opportunity is still going to be with a Pikepass. And then we're going to look at, and we are looking at, other opportunities like they're tolling apps out there now that they're on your cell phone. So we want to make it as easy as we can.
Yeah.
And as inexpensive as we can, because that's what we're always trying to do is, keep the tolls as low as we can.
So in Jinx, Oklahoma, there's when you as you're coming up you're on the Creek Turnpike. There's the Elm exit,
Yep.
and it's the only place I've seen this. But is that where you can go through, and is there a special tag on your license plate is that part of the test that you guys are doing?
Absolutely, Steve. And that was our pilot for plate pay.
Okay.
And that was
yeah.
the one location where we did our testing. And again, we opened that up in 2016, 2017 timeframe. And we're ready, and again, in a lot of instances, we're overdue. When Oklahoma brought Pikepass in, we are the first state in the country to implement that technology and go to that open road tolling format. And it's worked really, really well. But then we kind of stopped. And most all of the rest of the country is already doing cashless tolling, so we're playing catch up a little bit, and it's time. And again, the motivation for me is the safety of the folks that are using the network, and that's a big deal.
You have so much on the stove, and I don't mean to get into this, but Steve, whenever he said, I just thought of this, I had the same thought. When we had, shout out to Grayson Arties, when he had him on the show, he talked about drone service. So we saw the legislature just pass something like that. Is that going to be under your umbrella too, or where does that go?
In the Aeronautics Commission, they're going to have a role to help understand what's going on out there in the drone world. That not necessarily in a regulatory manner, but in a little bit of a registration, kind of dipping our toe in the water of what the future might look like. Unmanned aerial systems, I think, are we're going to be amazed by the things that we see happen in that space in the not too distant future. The Choctaw Nation and some of the things that they're doing with their pilot program that they've got going down in southern Oklahoma is going to be incredible. The development that's happening in that space right now, I think it's going to be nothing short of amazing. And we've got to begin to put the policies in place that are going to be needed to support that type of activity, because eventually we're going to have to regulate that airspace,
Right.
In some form or fashion.
So talk to us a little bit about EVs. Tesla was in the news for a while before state lost them to Austin, but still there's a growing number of vehicles you're probably finding on the highways that are electric. Power plants, power stations, plans to support those vehicles. Kind of give us some flavor around that.
Well, first thing I'd tell you is that technology is growing and advancing faster than I ever anticipated. 10 years ago, we were talking about electric vehicles and the impact that was going to have primarily on our traditional transportation revenue streams, which is a tax on a gallon of diesel or gas.
Right.
But I didn't expect it to get here this fast. And, the thing that is of most concern, and the legislature took some real positive action in this last session to start to try to get their arms around how we're going to make sure that the electric vehicles that we're going to see more and more volumes of out on the highway system, how are they going to contribute to the long-term care and maintenance of that infrastructure? So they took a huge step in that direction. The technology there, battery technology, is advancing so fast. And then, one of the things that's going to make the biggest safety difference in the future will be driver assist enhancement and eventually fully autonomous vehicles. The challenge we're going to have is getting from where we're at today, where you got a potentially autonomous vehicle that's out there with a vehicle that's got some level of driver assist, and then you got me and my four-wheel drive Silverado that has none of that, And how are you going to mix us all together and keep everybody safe and sort out liability and things like that?
Like with the trucking industry, Amazon is toying around with that idea. So if we have all these highway systems that intersect, surely we're going to see some of those deliveries come through.
Absolutely will. And again, truck platooning is, we have that capability here statutorily in Oklahoma now.
So explain what truck platooning is for everybody.
So truck platooning is where a truck can pull up near another truck, about 40 feet distance between the two, and connect over Bluetooth technology with that truck in front that controls the braking, and it'll maintain that distance between the two.
Wow.
And there's still a driver in the seat, but that advantage is fuel efficiency.
Right.
And that capability is something that is pretty exciting, and we're going to see more and more of that in the trucking industry, and eventually with the challenges that we have in the trucking industry with something as simple as drivers. We've got to find ways to move freight more efficiently, and that's going to be a big challenge for the future. But all things electric and all things autonomous, I think, are advancing at a rate that is far faster than I expected. And now, as the fleet converts, at the federal level, the federal government still hasn't taken action to make sure that EVs are paying their share of infrastructure cost. And they're going to have to do that, because I think the passenger fleet especially, is going to convert to electric faster than anybody expected. And you can see that evident in the automakers. Just about every one of them has announced that they're going to have a major EV platform, if not convert entirely to electric passenger vehicles. So,
is there anything he can't do? I feel like we've covered the gamut. So, Steve, or you want to ask any remaining questions?
Yeah.
Or is there anything we've left off?
Yeah, I think we ask everyone typically. It's earlier, last March, April, May, June, and we launched, and we're in the middle of the height of the pandemic. We always ask, what gave people hope, right? Where do they see coming out of something so horrible and so tragic? Where do they see hope for Oklahoma, or maybe specifically for your mission? So I'd ask you the same thing. Given where we are now, states open, you're probably seeing a ton more traffic on your highways. But tell us a little bit about what gives you hope for either the future of your cabinet or for Oklahoma in general.
One thing I'd emphasize about the pandemic is I really feel like Oklahoma did a fantastic job of managing our way through the challenges of COVID-19. The leadership here, whether you're talking about starting at the governor,
right,
and the support that we received from the administration as agencies to continue to deliver our mission. Steve, OMES and IT, I don't know what we would have done without the technological support we received.
Thank you.
Because we deployed quickly and we didn't miss a beat. So Oklahoma did a fantastic job, first and foremost, managing our way through it. That materialized in the budget year we just had.
Yeah.
We did very well, and that didn't happen by accident. That happened by good management practices that carried the state through that. The hope that I have is we're beginning to see things materialize in traffic volumes, technological advancements, management philosophies. Telework, something as simple as that. That's a game changer for our ability to recruit and retain top quality professionals into government roles. Not just that, private sector also, but at the same time it makes us more competitive. My hope is that we are going to create the government that is going to carry Oklahoma forward to the future, that will be to the benefit of the generations that we've got coming up behind us. And that time is now. Which is why I'm so excited about the Department of Transportation, Turnpike Authority, and Aeronautics going through something like modernization.
Yeah.
That's hope. That's hope for the future. And that's beginning to put the blocks in place, infrastructure reference, that are going to support us and lay that foundation that's going to support us going forward. So, man, I'm excited to just be a part of it.
It's an amazing town to be in state government. I tell my kids that all the time. They're in Tulsa. I get to work with great people like Tim. The cabinet's full of them, but more importantly, we have people in the agencies that are doing this work every single day that are passionate about what they do. So, and to have the technological advances, but also, I never knew, like until recently, that you actually had a discipline of math and science and how you guys make decisions, how you design out. Bridges is an obvious thing, but the roads and the places and where you pick and where you choose your investments, I think it's super fascinating. Unfortunately, on a short broadcast like this, we don't. I mean, we got to have you come back and talk more about it and dig deeper. Your
Part
team,
two.
your poor team.
Love to.
For everyone out there, we got a list from Tim's team, and we probably didn't get to cover most of it, but we'd love to have you come back and do another segment or two and just educate people on the good things you guys are doing.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and appreciate what you guys are doing, because I think this messaging is really, really important. So.
Thank you, sir.
You truly changed the way I'll think about driving forever now. I don't think I'll be able to get in my car and think someone carefully thought about this when I'm sitting in construction, but it makes me really value the hard work going on behind the scenes. So everybody, please like, share, comment on this video so we can get some good news out about what ODOT and really transportation is doing at the state level, and we will see you next time.
See you guys.